Can everyone see my screen? Give me a thumbs up.
Go for it.
Okay, wonderful. This essay may have been conceived and formally penned by Yaya Jata Fanusie, but credit should go to 2Ys, my moniker of choice for creative work. I came up with that name, 2Ys, in the summer of 1993, before my sophomore year at college, when I wrote a rap called Eyes the Wise. This picture is from a few years later. The boastful title of 2Ys drew from the methodology of hip hop lingo. It was me writing outside the lines and in the margins. Nomenclature was a creative remaking of African-American vernacular, but it was probably indirectly influenced by my longtime consumption of All in the Family reruns, with me drawing on Archie Bunker saying, "use guys." Or maybe it was the Flintstones patriarch who had me thinking I could contract I am into eyes. The contraction was a construction of me finding and founding my rap writing persona. It would be wise, and it would draw on the uniqueness of my name and personality. Few guys had names starting with Ys. No one I knew had 2Ys in their name. So 2Ys became my rapping stage name, or my MC name. MC, Master of Ceremonies, mic controller, move the crowd. 2Ys was quite appropriate because of its double meaning. I love wordplay, especially double entendres, puns, and alliterations. So 2Ys stuck as my tag. Like in graffiti, a tag is the identifier of the creative vandal, displaying his literacy even when breaking the rules of law and literacy, literally, misspelling. I'd usually put an apostrophe between the Y and S, even though there should not have been a possessive case, except for the name belonging just to me. Graffiti tags credit the performers of visual art. Rap tags note the musical performers of words, where the syllables are the notes in a graphic notation of quotations. It's odd for a rapper to use his true name. Most rap appellations convey coolness and aggrandizement, often taking one's real identity and stripping it apart and piercing it back together with a hip hop sensibility. That's what 2Ys was. And it makes me think of my favorite rapper from my youth. Back in the day, he was KRS-One. His nickname was Chris, spelled with a K, because people in his homeless shelter called him Krishna due to his affinity for the Hare Krishnas who would visit the shelter. So he took Chris and constructed an MC tag as knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone, KRS-ONE. And he was known as the teacher. See, rappers are poetical practitioners in a form of verbal art that erupted out of the 1970s. But rap might best be understood by taking a quick look into the 19th century and surveying the poetical production and literary criticism of a prominent poet of America's first century, one whose name was known by both the learned and wealthy, and the uneducated and the Poe, Edgar Allan. Edgar Allan Poe fits well as the baseline to frame an outline of hip hop's literary relevance to the American time and space, jammed into 12 scores in 5 years since our conception of equality was proposed in Philly. Those 76ers would be surprised to learn that one of America's most famous poems actually began with rapping. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. 4 lines in, those words appear in Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, the only poem to have an NFL team named after it. And Edgar Allan Poe has a special role in my literary development. Recently, actually back home in California, I got my hands on this book given to me by my Aunt Carla. Back in, it was 1982. She said for me to read. I was 7 years old. And I remember learning that Poe's birthday was one day before mine. He was the first literary poet that I was exposed to. This is the actual book I just took a picture of last week. Poe was also a literary critic, and he analyzed poets of his day. One time, he wrote an essay called The Heresy of the Didactic, where he turned the aesthetics of poetry on their head, saying that the value was not in the beauty of message, but that the beauty in the messaging was where you measured the worth of the words. And here's how he described poetry. I would define in brief the poetry of words as the rhythmical creation of beauty. Its sole arbiter is taste. With the intellect or with the conscience, it has only collateral relations. Unless incidentally, it has no concern whatever with duty or with the truth. Now, excuse me, while some later observers have characterized Poe's criticism here as arguing for art's sake, that I believe is a superficial take. I see Poe's opinion here as an attempt to raise the bar of poetical composition. I doubt he believed that a message of gibberish would be fine as long as it sounds good or reads well. I think he was saying that there is a high level of beauty that can be attained and obtained in the weaving of words and syntax, written and or recited. That its impact on emotion goes beyond purely intellectual satisfaction. Just as appreciating a painting requires more than understanding the painter's intention of his or her message. It's the execution and delivery, the technique, and the proficiency whose only evidence is judged by how the image ultimately falls on your senses. Just like how you can't appreciate a symphony by reading the notes on a sheet. It's not until that rhythmical creation of beauty falls on your ears. So let me focus on that term, rhythmical creation of beauty. The phrase also, I think, relates to how the art form of rapping became such a powerful force, a creative force in the 1980s, when it sprung out of its Bronx box and boogied downtown to cross bridges with blancos and negros, morenos and blondies. The lyrics landed differently than in pop songs. Rap rhyming is communicative. At the same time, its impact relies on more than just message, but on pattern weaving and technique in streaming text and syntax, so succinctly that the words elaborate characters like verbal calligraphy. Writing a rap rhyme is as much about mood as it is mode. One rhyme can be like a sculptor's mold, starting with a bare element soft copy that you spin into a structure that communicates you as a thinker. And that's the process I remember from my days as Two Eyes. And when I read Edgar Allan Poe's explanation of how he wrote The Raven, that's when it hit me. He constructed that poem precisely in the same way rappers write their rhymes. In another essay called Philosophy of Composition, Poe explained that he began writing The Raven by first thinking of an effect, and from there decided on a certain tone for the poem. And then he decided on a sound. Then he picked a single word to emphasize with a piece. And with that, he decided on a creature to feature. That was his blueprint. He said, regarding then beauty as my province, my next question referred to the tone of its highest manifestation. And all experience has shown that this tone is one of sadness. Beauty of whatever kind in its supreme development invariably excites the sensitive soul to tears. Melancholy is thus the most legitimate of all the poetical tones. So he sat down wanting to evoke beauty. That was his mission before he started writing. He reflected on that to come up with melancholy. Then he found a sound to induce that melancholy. And the word he found to sum up that feeling was nevermore. And he constructed the poem around that one word. So Poe chose a raven as the best creature to articulate that sound and that tone. This shows the process of poetry as an intentional effort to construct beauty in words and recitation. This is not art for art's sake, but the artist understanding art as both a destination and a vehicle. And this methodology is similar to the writing of raps. In the rap writing process, you typically don't start with a topic or message, usually. You often start with a beat or an instrumental track. The track conveys a feeling. So the writer is composing words to fit a mood predetermined. The MC must construct the lines, the stories, the images, and the characters and fit them in a communicative package. Rap lyrics are more standalone compositions than other lyrical forms of music. Think about it. Rap songs are what popularized remixes, where you take the music track and substitute it with a totally different accompaniment underneath, even a new melody. You can't do that so easily with other genres. Rap lyrics get put on top of remixes, while other genres get covers. Because in rap, the words flow on the waves of sentiments of sound, and each rhyme writer is a surfer, and there's more below the surface. The thing that makes rap so distinct from other forms of music is that as part of its performance, it breaks the fourth wall of the performance stage. The rap performance is self-aware. The rapper will make reference to the microphone or the crowd in front of him, since emceeing is moving the crowd while controlling the mic. Rappers will regularly refer to their record deals and record labels, their tour promoters or fans and groupies that make up the after effects of their performing. So the art is aware of its industry. because rap is communicative as well as performative. An exemplar audio form where destination and vehicle are intertwined, equal parts of the journey. These rhythmic creators of beauty employ all types of literary devices, devising clever references, codes, and lyrical dexterity, like what Edgar Allan Poe did in one of his poems, Valentine, where he actually penned a love letter to a secret woman whose name you could figure out only if you knew the key to the mystery. You had to take the first letter from the first line and the second letter from the second line and so forth to find the name of the object of his affection. So poetry writing allows this focused attention on word construction, almost pyramidic in the ancient Egyptian manner in how it combines beauty of form and function, even if the subject might be a somber one. Wordplay is the root of rap. It's what makes up its stem and its branches that convey the flowering it leaves you with. The rhythmic beauty is in the trees more so than in the forest. Now, one of the best at wordplay, undeniably, is a rapper who goes by the name of Lupe Fiasco. At least this is in my opinion. And as expected, Lupe Fiasco is not his government name. But his 2014 song Mural is one of the densest, most complex poems that I've come across. Let's take a quick listen of this verbal composition. Actually, let's listen and look. And let me know if you have trouble hearing, but watch what's on the screen. This is the beginning of his verse for the song Mural, Lupe Fiasco.
We're all chemicals, vitamins and minerals, and Vicodin within the tubes wrapped around the arm. The seed and vein like a chicken on a bond. Top cat chat, let's begin another yawn. Let's flying sausage cheese, or is it chicken palm? The roosters don't fly like boosters don't buy. So what powers cowards to get them to the top? Just to fall asleep, listen in the box. The ribbon in the sky is the ribbon that I drop. Dribbling the eye across the prism of a clock. That lacks meaning, but racks up stacks of fat reading. The catch cheap and wrapped up plants and trap dealings. Now what's a coffin with a scratch ceiling? And what's the talking without the match feeling? There's berry living and cherry picking every lemon from your berry system, then proceed with the pack feeding. When I was young, I had.
So here we have, I'll put the lyrics up here and just say a few words about them. We have an exhibition of clever lyricism, with Lupe's bragging on his own talent, taking a jab at other rappers, the rap industry, and toying with us as listeners, trying to keep up with his writing. So let's break it down, looking at, there's double meaning about here in the beginning, about trying to get to a higher point. The imagery of chemicals and then shooting drugs into one's vein, right? Getting high. But the vein referred to as a homophone. A vein for your blood vessel, and also a vein that would be on the top of a barn, which is usually what? A rooster. Top Cat probably refers to the Top Cat Hanna-Barbera cartoon figure. In this song, he actually mentions a lot of cartoons. And so Top Cat was basically an urban con artist. He had to be clever, meaning to understand these lyrics, you'll need to be sharp and street smart. And what's another yarn? That's slang for chat or discussion, but it follows a reference to cats, of course, which play with yarn. Now, are his words out of this world and a little crazy, like flying saucer cheese, alluding to a cat's preference for dairy? Or are these words a fine delicacy for a feline, like chicken parmesan would be? But roosters don't fly. Again, here's the reference to chickens, cowards, trying to get to the top, right? Higher at the top of the barn. Like boosters don't buy. Who are boosters but people who steal? Maybe it's a reference to people who bite rhymes. That's pretty common in the rap genre. Biters are people who are unoriginal, MCs who steal, who copy other rappers. But how do such people get to the top? How do rappers who really don't have the true talent get to higher positions like the top of the barn, where they don't belong, where they are sleeping on artists, on real artists like Lupe, who, like Johann Sebastian Bach, the sound chicken makes, may be a composer who is not appreciated until well after his death, right? Like Bach was. We jump down to, what's a coffin with a scratched ceiling? It's being underground, but being buried alive because people don't know your value as an artist. What's the talking without the match feeling? It's like, and actually he's making, I think, a reference to the movie Buried, where the protagonist is buried alive and uses a lighter like a match to speak throughout the film. But it also means, how can a rapper communicate if his audience doesn't get the references? There's a mismatch. So as buried living, it's also like losing all the nutrients internally, like cherries in your berry system or your blood system. right? Lupe goes on to say how when this happens, you proceed with the pack feeding. But this could be the herd mentality that you find in the music world, or folks who just follow along with insignificant art that may be popular, but he finds unworthy. But he's also painting the image here of the arcade game Pac-Man, right? The pack feeding, which is played in a boxed-in environment where the player chases after those fruits, lemons, cherries, and berries, and throughout the game, you never get free. There are volumes of analysis on these bars. This is just the beginning. This is quite an impressive rhyme. Lupe's rhymes are layered in meaning and in their schemes. The sublime beauty of the best rap lyrics comes from enjoying an audio aesthetic that only gets more beautiful when you go beyond the surface, as if the rapper is escorting you with scuba gear through otherworldly coral reefs off the coast of Thailand. It's impossible to catch the layers of references in almost every line. Lupe is a master designer, not just of wordplay and double entendres, but even concepts. He'll take a concept and string it across a few verses, several songs, and even several albums. These are just some of the album covers. And interesting to note that Mural, which is the name of that song, is like an audio mural, right? He's painting this picture and the song just goes on for a long time with no breaks. It's important to note that Lupe is actually an amateur painter. That painting on the right is actually from one of his paintings, and it's used for the cover of one of his albums. But there's another song that's a personal favorite of mine because of the way it breaks the fourth wall of the hip hop industry. It's also Lupe Fiasco song. It's called Dumb It Down. Let's check it out.
Now hear this, I'm earless, and I'm peerless. That means I'm eyeless, which means I'm tearless, which means my iris resides where my ears is, which means I'm blinded, but I'ma find it. I can feel its nearness, but I'm a fear, so I don't come near like a chicken or a deer. But I remember I'm not a listener or a seer, so my windshield smear. Here you stare, I really shouldn't be behind this, clearly cause my blindness. The windshield is minstrel, the whole drill is roadkill, so trill and so sincere. Yeah, I'm both them there, took both pills when the bloke in the trench coat and the lokes in the chair had approached him here. Made it clear as a ghost, so a biter of the throats in the mirror. The writer of the quotes for the ghost, who supplier of the notes to the living. Rivets in his rose there, pockets full of posies given to the mother of the deceased. Awaken that wall till I'm resting in peace.
You're going over, heads low. They telling me that they don't feel you.
So let's break that down just a little bit. Oops. So here's Dumb It Down. But even before we get to the meaning, note how it starts with that alliteration in the beginning, right? It makes you perk up and listen. This is that rhythmical creation of beauty when he starts with that fearless, hear this, earless, eyeless, iris. It's a signal to the senses to pay attention to what is coming next. There's one line in particular that's so simple, but I think is clever. It's where he says, but I'm a veer, so I don't come near like a chicken or a deer. I remember when I first heard that, right? It's hit you so quick how a chicken and a deer will always run away from you, right? It's great comparison. But Lupe's lyrics are evasive, is what he's saying. When you think you come close to his meanings, they're out of reach because he's such a clever lyricist. But the chorus on the song is Dumb It Down, with a person saying things like, you're going over niggas' heads, Lou. These big words ain't cool. Right? He's taking on the hip hop industry. He's pointing out that record companies don't want to push these heady, complicated rhymes, and that much of the public wants empty messages about food and weed and liquor and weed and videos with half-naked women. So here we have a rapper, very much aware of how he fits into the grand scheme of the popular music industry. He feels his rhymes are intellectually dense, but the industry wants him to dumb it down. And this is the self-awareness of art and industry that I mentioned before. It recurs throughout hip hop. And one of my favorite raps ever is a classic hip hop song called My Philosophy by the group Boogie Down Productions, whose lead MC was KRS-One. And here's a rap from 1988. I don't have the words here, but just catch some of the references here and we'll talk about how this relates.
In about 4 seconds, a teacher will begin to speak.
Oops. Sorry. I don't know why they have ads here. I shouldn't have any more ads.
In about 4 seconds, a teacher will begin to speak. I play the 9 and you play just started, or should I say start this? Teaching other artists often new concepts that they're hardest. Yo, cause I'm a teacher, this guy is a scholar. It ain't about money, cause we all make dollars. That's why I walk with my head up. When I hear whack rhymes, I get better. Rap is like a setup, a lot of games, a lot of suckers with colorful names. I'm so and so, I'm this, I'm that, but they all just wick, whack. I'm not white or red or black, I'm brown. From the boogie down, productions, of course, I'm musically thumping. Others say they're bad, but they're bugging. But let me hear you something now about hip hop, about D-Nice melody and scholar rock. I get a pen, a pencil, a marker. Mainly what I write is for the average New Yorker. Some MCs be talking and talking, trying to show how black people are walking. But I don't walk this way to portray or reinforce stereotypes of today. Like all my brothers eat chicken and watermelon, talk broken English and drug selling. And teach you real facts. The way some act in rap is kind of whack and it lacks creativity and intelligence. But they don't care because their company's selling it. It's my philosophy on the industry. Don't bother dissing me or even wishing we soften, dilute, or commercialize all the lyrics, because it's about time one of y'all hear it. And hear it firsthand from the intelligent brown man. A vegetarian, no go or ham, or chicken or turkey or hamburger. Because to me, that's suicide, self-murder. Let us get back to what we call hip-hop and what it meant to DJ Scott.
So what's happening here? By 1988, hip hop had been a formidable national cultural phenomenon for almost 10 years and was rising in commercial success. This is one of my favorite rhymes because it's really timeless in its nature. KRS-One is showing point blank that the phenomenon of hip hop is emerging out of African-American culture, but that all rap is not created equal. Some rappers play on negative imagery and stereotypes, where he references the fried chicken and watermelon speaking broken English. But his rapping teaches and uplifts the everyday person, the everyday New Yorker, as you might have heard him say. The art arises not from the elite class of society, but it elevates the grassroots. He's a product of his boogie down Bronx environment and not apologetic about it. If you notice the background of the video, what do you see? It's the hood in all its happy blemishes. But there's a hint in his lyrics that the industry of hip hop is not always authentic. Even then, it was being manufactured, a fabrication rooted in a reality, but distorted and perhaps harmful in its commercialization. So how does the rap artist address or deal with this contradiction? Let's take a quick look at another song by a group called A Tribe Called Quest from the 90s and their song Check the Rhyme. And hopefully ads won't play. I actually thought I had gotten a YouTube account, so I wouldn't have ads, but let's check this out. Oh.
It's okay, Yaya, we forgive you.
Like 5 seconds longer, it'll be fine.
Do you recall when we used to rock those fly routines on your cousin's block? Let me see. Damn, I can't remember. I received the message and you will play the same. You're on point tip.
Some of you can sing along.
You're on point tip. Yeah, all the time, Fife. You're on point tip. You're all the time, Fife. So play the resurrector and give the dead some life. Okay, if knowledge is the key, then just show me the lock. Got the scrawny legs, but I move just like Luke Rock with speed. I'm agile, plus I'm worth your while. 100% intelligent black child. My opera presentation sizzles the retina. How far must you go to gain respect? Simple, just remain your own, or you'll be crazy, sad, and alone. Industry rule number 4080. Record company people are shady. Watch your back, because I think they smoke crack. I don't doubt it. Look at how they act. Better things like a hip hop forum. Pass me the rock and I'll score 'em with the girl improper. What you say, hammer? Proper. It's not pop if you call it that.
Then stop. Rap is not pop. If you call it that, then stop, is what Q-Tip says, the rapper from A Tribe Called Quest. This is from 1991. Hip hop was experiencing greater success on the pop charts despite its underground origins. Note the misspelling in rhyme in the song's title, probably a nod to the graffiti art aesthetic, where misspellings are not necessarily typographical errors. They're also an assertion that these rhymes come from outside scholastic culture and outside the mainstream. The culture itself is breaking the rules. But in 1991, it was interesting. MC Hammer won a Grammy for the best R&B song, You Can't Touch This. And in this video here, Q-Tip is alluding to a Pepsi commercial where MC Hammer drinks a Pepsi and drinks it, and his satisfaction, he says, proper. Because MC Hammer in the early 90s was the epitome of rap's commercial success. But there was this tension between commercial crossover into the pop charts and the rap, which was considered real, unacknowledged by the popular entertainment establishment. This was a different world than today, where hip hop is fully mainstream. But still, the tension still exists. Newer artists, now 21 years into this century, can be introspective and as self-aware as they were before, reflecting sometimes on the trap of rap when it becomes the self-absorbed destination and not a beautiful artistic journey. Let's go take a quick look at a more recent rap. Here we go. This is a popular rapper of today, J. Cole. And check the observations of his 2016 song, False Prophets.
Somebody should have told me it would be like this, be like this, like this. Somebody should have told me it would be like this. Yeah. Life is a balance. You lose your grip, you can slip into an abyss. No doubt, you see these niggas tripping. Ego in charge of every move, he's a star. And we can't look away due to the days that he caught our hearts. He's falling apart, but we deny it. Justifying a half-ass shit he dropped, we always buy it. When he tell us he a genius, but it's clearer lately. It's been hard for him to look into the mirror lately. There was a time when this nigga was my hero, maybe. That's the reason why his fall from grace is hard to take. Cause I believed him when he said his shit was pure, ain't he? The type of nigga swear he real, but all around us fake. The women, the dick riders, you know the yes men. Nobody with the balls to say something to contest them. So it grows out of control until the person that he truly was all along is starting to show. Damn, wonder what happened. Maybe it's my fault for idolizing niggas based off the words they be rapping. When come to find out, these niggas don't even write they shit. Here's some new style bubbling up, then they bite this shit. Damn, that's what I get for lying to myself. Well, fuck it, what's more important is he's crying out for help. While the world's egging him on, I'm begging him to stop it. Playing his old shit, knowing he won't top it. False prophets. Somebody should have told me it would be like this, be like this, be like this. Somebody should have told me it would be like this, be like this. False prophets.
So like some of the best poetry, this piece is deeply personal and introspective, maybe ironic. J. Cole shows himself amongst everyday people. The video was filmed in New York City, even though he's from North Carolina. And here's one of the biggest rappers of today lamenting on how he idolized other rappers and how he now sees that some of these poets have risen only to despair. He's speaking to those before him who have fallen, while at the same time telling a cautionary tale to the younger rappers who are listening to his rhymes today. If they listen closely, they may learn how they must be careful to not turn him into their false prophet. Which brings me to my own tension with my history of hip hop. I started writing rhymes in high school, inspired by what is now known as the golden age of hip hop, which was relatively brief. Most people say it lasted from 1986 to the mid 90s. Rappers at this time were the biggest influencers of my teenage intellect. Idolizing certainly was the word for how I approached them. The cleverness of their rhymes awed me. The knowledge captured in their lyrics intrigued me. The golden age of hip hop formed me. But I noticed something is that golden age's glitter glided away, losing its luster as the glory of the 90s guild of rappers winded down. My maturity was winding up. The first time I knew there was trouble was when one of those idols, when my teacher, KRS-One, in 95 or so, called himself in a promotion, he said he was the god of rap syllable. And rappers were always hyperbolic, but that struck me as behind hyperbole because it sounded like he may be taking himself too seriously. And one of the things about rap braggadocio is that it's clear that it's boasting, but giving yourself the title of god of anything sounded almost like a key plot point in a Greek tragedy. But something else happened to rap lyricism in the 1990s. While hip hop always reflected the reality of American urban street life, soon more and more of the art form started to glorify the culture of the gangster side of that street. Gangster rap was previously present, but it was incidental, a prop that was part of the backdrop of 1980s inner city culture. But soon it took on center stage. Many fans loved it. And the industry ran with it and became part of the cultural makeup of the art. I'm gonna share one more clip. think this is the last clip. This is from one of the original gangster rappers, Too Short, commenting from Oakland, California. He discusses this phenomenon. This is not a rap video. This is just a brief interview clip that actually just came out a few days ago, describing what happened to rap in the 90s.
Because it was the way it was until rappers started getting a lot of fucking money, and then we started mimicking the street niggas in our videos and in our lifestyle. We started mimicking what the Kingpins did. And we like, well, shit, put the rope around me and bring me some bottles. You know what I'm saying? Just put some bitches around me. And we was mimicking what it was already go way back to the fucking, way back. I was a little dude. Look over there, you see the fucking rope? Those are fucking gangsters. Those are ballers, bro. Like, no bullshit. And when they call you over there, you go over and say, what's up? If they let you hang out with them. But you don't just go over there, move the rope back and be like, I'm VIP. It wasn't working like that. So we started mimicking the shit. And from that point, which was, later in the 90s, it was expected of hip hop. It's expected of a rapper to get to a certain stature, get your entourage, make it look real G, pop the bottles at the club, throw the money at the strip club. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to do kingpin things. Even when you're not of that status, you are to pretend it, you are to portray it, if that's the look you're going for, and do it to the fullest. So
in the late 90s also, there was the transformation I was going through as I contemplated mortality, existence, and my relationship with my maker. I couldn't see the rap poets as the characters they aggrandize themselves to be. Many were smart, intelligent wordsmiths and performers who had a way with that rhythmic beauty, but they were flawed. Even in their introspective rhymes, I could see rappers searching for answers to the meaning of it all, their inner and outer lies. They would chronicle their searching in their rap lines. And in my own growth, I would soon be convinced that the answer to the spiritual and psychological pursuits pondered in the most artistic and profound rap compositions were not necessarily found in the lines of hip hop. The art form definitely elevated consciousness, but it did not always necessarily transcend its rhyme scheme, which made even the freest rappers prisoners of their own bars. We used to say rap poetry stood for rhythm and poetry, a trilateral root that has sprouted from a simple creative underground movement to an established art form that is by all means industrial and complex. So how might the rappers whose emergence stitched together the industrial and digital ages of 20th and 21st centuries compare to the rhapsodes of ancient times who stitched together the tales, sentiments, and values reflected in the Bronze Age to make epic poems that drove the world around them and the generations to come? In those epic poets of past words, do we find the current keys to unlock all our literate society holds dear, literally? What does this hip hop ascendance and flirtations with both beauty and decadence mean for rap poetry as a literary art? Poetry a century ago was mostly literary, meant more for reading than hearing. And there's a poet and critic named Dana Goya, former head of the National Endowment for the Arts, where he made this distinction between traditional literary poets on the one hand, and the rappers, cowboy poets, and poetry slam spoken word artists that had gained popularity in the 90s and the early 2000s on the other. He called this latter group the auditory avant-garde, known for their art being more performative than literary. Does rap now supersede the traditional literary poetry whose main mode of consumption is through books? American literary poetry in the time of Poe, Dickinson, and Longfellow was consumed across our society's classes, their words echoing well beyond their poets' radii of time and space. But the literary poets of today do not echo far enough beyond the chambers of creative writing departments and selective literary journals. But these oral poets who are MCs, who move the crowd, who control the mics through their rhythm and poetry, can be named in most households that contain occupants in their teens, tweens, and 20s. Those same occupants are more familiar with Homer, a son of a simpleton, synonym, than Homer, the mononym. And this is not a put down, it's a self-reflection. Because I must admit, I read translations of epic Greek poems in high school, but I don't remember much from my reading of those days. But I do remember most of the rap poetry I bought in 10th grade and can recite you all the lines from the albums I owned at the same time. So I'm a reflection of the shift from poetry of literature to the poetry of auditory avant-garde. But I recently started reading the Odyssey as part of my reorientation to the literary arts. Didn't that ancient poetry start as oral compositions performed by the rhapsodes and only later becoming art written and translated for reading? Is it possible we could view the auditory avant-garde of rap poetry as being on par with the literary classics? Now, the same Dana Goya said in an interview something interesting. It said, and I quote, "I don't think Snoop Dogg is the new Shakespeare, but hip hop is the reinvigoration of oral poetry. And I think it's a good thing." Close quote. So I think that's kind of a reserved compliment. It's almost like he's saying, you know, Snoop is clever and significant as a cultural figure, but let's not mistake him for the greatest writer of the English language. You know, in today's artistic space, we don't want to disrespect and dismiss the literary tradition, and we also don't want to dismiss and diss this new oral tradition. Few will dare to say that the Doggy Style album is much ado about nothing, even if they think it. But maybe the wrong way to look at poetry in 2021 is to compare the Odyssey with Illmatic, the rap album by Nas that many consider the best hip hop album of all times. Both are certainly epic, delivering you by recitation through a vivid journey of survival in the midst of physical and spiritual peril. There's definitely a sense of honor in different ways in both of those pieces. The speakers in both the epic poem and the epic rap tell a rap album tell of a variety of adversaries, villains, and tragic figures. The protagonists are prideful and flawed, dealing with wounds inflicted by others and themselves. Each poetical piece transmits the values of its author to its audience, written for people who would understand and appreciate the values of that time and space. But when we're removed from the values of the poet, it may be difficult to appreciate them, except in an academic sense, or sometimes by falling into cultural voyeurism. The key question for poets, I think, all poets, is will the values that you convey stand and resonate, even unearthed centuries later? Or will they be buried and boxed in, only acceptable and accessible as a dumbed down time capsule? I think we're in a new age now, different from the age of bronze or the golden age of hip hop, because culture is so fragmented. There seem to be few unifying cultural reference points that are literary, poetical, and that reach vertically and horizontally across our society. And thus, this makes it difficult to have common values. I feel that while there are many literary and cultural achievements in every nook and corner of our society, what we have constructed culturally is not a sense of common unity amongst our artistic and literary classes, but instead a pantheon. Each cultural or ideological rooted identity giving service slavishly to its particular circumstances, reflecting each personal narrative narrowly, competing to be baby Zeus's. Such a situation brings disorder, clashes of titanic scales that history tells us end up causing the whole ship to sink, tripped up by the small barriers that we see. There's so much below the surface. The artist trip is when he celebrates himself as a conqueror of Poseidon, though he's barely on a maiden voyage. A god of rap syllable might have wise words, or he could just be silly bull. Artificial intelligence. We have lots of such animals lost in a land that slowly becomes no country for humans. A poetical piece that can stand the test of time, when it goes beyond and echoes beyond a New York state of mind, be it Ithaca or Queens. Will it transmit values that transcend, values for the human experience? Homer did that, and I'm hoping the homies and homeboys do that. There's the forest and there's the trees. Celebrating a work of culture is to honor an individual tree, but the value of the plant's kingdom is in synthesizing the light that gives us all life. That's what makes the forest rain. It's amazing, right? Lyrics can be horticulture, or they can hurt a culture. Those poets that can reflect a brighter light, conveying the values that connect beyond their roots, can make oxygen for the rest of the human family tree. Those who wallow in the ish of their self are typically dwarfed, like taking the S from self. Served with critique, these words that I may show how I've evolved, but can still spell out letters of love. Because what I love about rap lyricism as a cultural art form is that it welcomes self-critique. That might be its saving grace, that rappers can love the culture's sense while hating its sins. I'm happy to preserve the baby, less interested in bathwater. Maybe the self-awareness of the rapper about his industry and his knack for breaking the fourth wall is what we need in our Truman Show-like social media absorbed existence. Maybe we need to break the fourth wall of our artistic culture, literary and otherwise. The epic poems of the past were also murals, transmitting morals. Maybe that's the moral of the story. Poetry civilizes. Whether avant-garde or classical, the literature and poetry we consume resonates in the notes that we want to share with others. In high school, I wrote and performed raps. Later in college, I performed spoken word poetry. I proposed to my wife with a poem in 1999. That was my best work, by the way.
No, nothing.
More recently, I have ventured into reflective creative writing to form personal audio stories on my podcast.
No.
I feel like rap lyricism groomed me for the literary pursuits that have me sharing with all of you today. And I'm indebted to the culture of hip hop. So I'm committed to that rhythmical creation of beauty. But I also reflect on the coiner of that phrase and how, despite all the beautiful words that poet man composed for his adoring fans, the reported last words of Edgar Allan on his deathbed were, "Lord, help my poor soul." A reminder that the poet's prowess can be powerful, but it's not all powerful. I used to go by the tag Too Wise. And I remember once, after I told someone that, they slyly muttered, "Too wise for your own good." I smirked. The funny thing was, I actually never thought of that pun getting played back on me like that. Almost 30 years since I took on that moniker, I realized that I'm not too wise, at least not too wise enough. But I hope that I could learn from the wise poets, the wise rappers, the wise authors, and wise artists. If we survive long enough, we realize that this human race is a marathon that continues, with or without us. What legacy of value are we leaving for our friends, our families, our familiars, our fans, known or unfamiliar, for the everyday minions or the moguls with millions, for the future millennia, for when we must pass the civilizational baton? I hope that I can gain wisdom from my exposure to the literati and my learning from the unlettered, because I wouldn't be who I am without both layers of wisdom synthesizing myself. Check the rhyme. The journey is not about my too wise. It's more about the why. Thank you. And I will stop sharing.